Tim, you've talked a little bit about sales strat. You work with a lot of distributors on this challenge. What's your approach when you work with them?
The first thing I like to do is, before I ever try to get anybody to document, is to talk about the need to document. Why is it important to do? And that generally falls down to 5 key points. Number 1 is account retention. The more that I can document the savings that I'm providing to a key account, the more likely I am to be able to keep that account for a longer period of time. 3-year contract comes up and I'm showing them 10% savings. They're not likely to be able to go out in the market and get that, so it helps me retain the accounts that I have. The second is penetration. How do I go out and get more business either from an existing account or to be able to show new accounts why I should be their supplier of choice because of everything that I can save them? So you can actually use the documentation process to retain accounts as well as to penetrate and get more business. The third is margins. Increasing your margins, or at a minimum just trying to stop margin erosion, which has been a very, I'll say, big issue to a number of distributors. If I can show them how to save $1,000 using the example that we talked about before, but it's going to cost them $100 more, most customers would go with that because they want to save that $1,000. So you can increase your margins or stop margin erosion. The fourth is contractually obligated savings. As I mentioned, more and more customers are starting, particularly the larger, I'm going to say right now, national accounts, but you're going to start to see this move down into, I'll say, even mid-size accounts, where there's contractually obligated savings. You actually have to sign a contract that says, we're going to save you this much money, or our intent is to save you this much money, but there's goals involved. And then the fifth is stronger relationships. I was working with Hubbell Power Systems not too long ago, and one of the things that they've said is their ability to document and be able to go in and give their customer reports. One of the big things it has done is it's increased the impact of the quarterly meetings that they have with their customers, because they're not just talking about tactical issues. They're going in and they're more and more talking about strategic issues of how to make that customer more profitable. It's actually bonded the customer closer to, in this case, Hubbell Power Systems, which is a manufacturer, but the same types of things. Ferguson has told me the same thing, Graybar, and that is it brings the distributor and the customer closer together far more than anything else, because everybody starts to understand the value that that key distributor is bringing to the relationship. Once we talk about the need to document, then we identify how they add value. Too often, what you hear from salespeople is, well, that's just my job. I'm adding technical support. I'm solving problems. Well, that's just my job. But that's where the real value is. A lot of times people look at the value that they bring as being, gee, I got lots of inventory and I've got so much, so many salespeople and so many vehicles. Well, at that point, you're talking about you, the distributor, not what you're going to do for the customer. The only way you can add value is to provide a solution to your customer. And so what you're looking for is, what is it you do that changes your customer in a positive way? And a lot of times people are very surprised at what they have been doing for years. And I've literally had some people say, well, I add value every single day. And the answer is yes, you do. Now the question is, which of those things do you want to document? Because if you're adding value every single day, you don't want to spend all your time doing documentation. I generally tell people to spend an hour, maybe 2 hours a week in doing the documentation process. You've already done 90% of the work in providing the solution. Now let's document what the impact is on that customer. Then we talk about the third piece, which is how to actually document those. And this is the thing that most people are going to struggle with. This is where the skill set becomes the most critical piece, and that is when you do something, when you provide technical support, when you solve a problem, when you provide a substitution, how does that really impact the customer's cost and the customer's revenue streams? You can impact the customer's revenue streams through things like downtime, production rates, rejected products type thing. And you can impact a number of their costs from the standpoint of personnel cost, inventory carrying costs, those types of things, as well as expenditures of various types. So when you do something, when you change out a light bulb, when you change out a valve, when you change out a bearing, how are you impacting the customer's bottom line? And that's where the skill set becomes critical. And that's where the support becomes critical, that management has to build in order to help their salespeople do this, because even after you've done training, If you got trained on how to, this specific substitution, this specific light bulb, or this specific valve, the next substitution is going to be different, and it's going to impact different customers in different ways. So that skill set becomes the biggest thing that you have to build on. And then, of course, is that fourth piece, and that's the internal process to support the initiative, to get management building in that accountability and that support and helping to build that skill set.
You've spoken in the past, Tim, about making sure that the customer is on board with the value you provide. Why is it so important to make sure the customer understands the need you are addressing?
Well, first of all, documenting value, it helps you sell. It helps you sell your company. It helps you sell the products that you're trying to get them to buy, those types of things. But one of the big things is when you're looking at this is you also have to identify who you're impacting. And this becomes a critical piece in getting the customer to understand the need. A lot of times purchasing doesn't know what you did, much less the value of it. When I'm a salesperson and I go into an account and I'm helping the maintenance person, purchasing folks don't hear about that. What they hear about is my price, or what they see is my price. What they might see is some vendor-managed inventory, those types of things, emergency response. But all the, I'll say the more technical product substitutions, technical support, energy audits, those types of things they don't see and they don't know the value of it. So I need to work with the people who care about that value, work with them to document it so I can also show other people in the company what I'm doing for that company as a whole, not just have them looking at my price. But you also can't add that value without the customer. So one of the things we like to tell people is it's important to share credit with them. So now they have a piece of the ownership of what that solution is. And the more ownership they have, the more likely they're going to accept it and see the benefit of it because they help create it and they're going to want to let others know in the company. So it helps you sell when you're not there. And then too often the question is, value in terms of soft savings. Is it real savings? And most of the time when you really work with them and show them what the costs are, they start to see the savings as real to them, critical to them, valuable to them. And then the other piece is, why are you doing it? A lot of times there's this fear that, gosh, you're documenting now. Does that mean you're going to increase your price? And there may be price increases involved, but the bottom line is you're documenting to show why you are the supplier of choice. That's what it comes down to me. I want the customer to look at me as being, I'm the go-to supplier. I'm the one that they need to go to for all their solutions, and the more they get in the habit of coming to me, the more I'm going to be able to sell them because it's in their best interest. Even when I'm not the lowest priced supplier, I want to be the lowest total cost supplier, and I've got to be able to prove that lowest total cost savings.
You've also spoken about the importance of documenting cumulative value over the lifetime of the customer relationship. Why is this so critical?
Well, one of the biggest issues there is that people change positions or they leave the company. And the result is that if I'm not documenting it, a lot of times it becomes forgotten. But that's the first thing in terms of starting that documentation process, because people change position. I want to be able to show them what happened not only when they're in that position, when the new person's in that position, but also what happened before, because now I can show the cumulative impact or the risk of trying to change me out as a supplier. But a lot of times the total cost impact is not really seen. Let's take, for example, vendor-managed inventory. Let's say that I'm saving the customer $1,000 each year, and I've done it for 3 years. The customer needs to see not just that $1,000 in savings, but also the cumulative impact of that $3,000, $1,000 per year. So I want to show them that says, this is what I'm saving you per year, $1,000. But over the last 3 years since we've started VMI, I've saved you a total of $3,000. Now, if I do this over time, because typically what's going to happen is most people focus in on, what have you done for me lately? Over time, it becomes harder to find new solutions. So by showing the accumulated impact of all solutions over the lifetime of the relationship, the impact becomes much greater, and the risk of trying to find another supplier to replace me is much greater to the customer, because it's more than just $1,000 per year. It's the $3,000, the cumulative impact that we had over multiple years that shows the real value that I'm adding.